Right. What we're going to talk about today is we've had a few chats about various aspects of dog puppy care, and we just want to bring it together a bit. It's a puzzle, and we want to try and put the pieces together because I think we can find from all of this is that no one person can do this on their own. It's true what they say about, you need a village to raise a child. You need different skill sets.
Yes, definitely. And I think today we're getting more, and I say knowledgeable about what it takes to keep a pet, if you like. Right? Before we thought, we're just going to go pick up a dog. How hard can it be?
Absolutely.
And all of a sudden, you're getting these calls. We do get these calls. And I just got a puppy. And the first thing I say to them, congratulations, you have just screwed yourself up. It's like, why would you do that? But it's easy and hard, in the same time. It's easy if you know what you're doing.
I think that there are so many books written about it that there's lots of different ways to do it. And I think as soon as you get lots of methods into how to do something, it means that there are lots of ways to do it badly. And if there was a perfect answer, then we'd have found it and there'd be one book and it would be that book that we just followed for life.
Look, also, today, because there's a lot of content out there, right? So before, now reading books, also you're watching a lot of videos, you're seeing a lot of stuff on social media, and it looks easy.
Very easy.
But the devil is in the detail, right? And the success of this has many, many things that we need to be looking at. Let's say there's 2 or 3 categories of dogs that you can get into your house, or ways you can get dogs into your house. One is you adopt a dog. Second one is you buying sort of from a veterinarian, like from a pet shop. Or the third one is you're dealing with professional breeders, and you're going through a process, and you know what exactly you're getting that caters to your lifestyle as well. When we, for me, the success of all of this starts here, right? Was getting the right dog for you. And
I'd say it starts before that. I'd say it starts with deciding what the right dog is for you.
yes, and how to decide that.
I think it is one of those things that, whilst it sounds ridiculous saying it because we're all grown-ups and we want to make our own choices, it is something that you should take advice on, because it's very easy to, what we said before, it's very easy to set out and choose the dog that you think you want, but remembering that you're going to grow into a different person and that dog's going to grow into a different person. So you need to make sure that you're preparing for the future you and the future life that you want to have, not what you have now.
Agreed, and also, the lifestyle has a big impact, no, on what you're getting in terms of dogs. So a lot of, and many decisions are based on what kind of dog you would like to be associated with, or what kind of dog, how this dog looks. And there's popular breeds, there's unpopular breeds, and then there's a lot of people who avoid buying dogs and they want to rescue dogs. But again, all of this can be a slippery slope, right? If you choose the wrong dog, and then you start to set up yourself to sort of, fail from the start, because this is not going to have a very long-term, let's say, stay, between.
It's a relationship. And, if you do it right, it's going to be a relationship that lasts you for 15, 16 years, and that's fantastic. But what is it that they say? 50% of marriages end up in divorce because we can't do that right. So, it's so easy to choose the wrong dog in the first place and to start that relationship on the wrong foot.
Agreed, 100%. So let's assume we picked the right dog, right?
Yep.
For me, the most ideal way would be is to work with professional breeders once you've identified the right dog for you that works for your family, for example. And then you're looking at the genetics of the dog, the history of these dogs. You're avoiding aggression history, healthcare, heart conditions, hip dysplasias, many other issues that potentially can happen with dogs. You can identify more than me, on these issues. But let's say once we've
And
passed.
that's a bit, get your vet involved as well, because you can go through and you can work out some of the familial history, sort of going through the various tests with these breeds of dogs. And professional breeders should be doing that with you so that you can have a look through the history and see where that line of dogs has come from. And it's never going to be 100% perfect. Yeah, there's always the puppy that comes out with hip dysplasia in that family of 100 that haven't had it,
Yeah.
but your chances of success are so much higher.
Exactly, you improve your chances, no? And then and you're spot on, like now I see this, people are getting involved with us in the conversation before they get the dog, in
Brilliant.
months. And, they're doing their homework, and once the dog has arrived there, also the house is prepped to deal with that puppy, for example, if it's a puppy. What we always advise our clients, to do the moment the dog arrives, the first thing they do is directly to the vets.
Yes.
Get the dog checked with the vets, make sure everything is under control, vaccines. There's no other, many puppies we see, they have what you call them, like ulcers, they have like a pocket in their stomach, like an air pocket.
What the sort of dogs with sort of like
Hernias,
indigestion,
hernias.
hernias, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, a
you see,
hernia is where the sort of stomach pops in and out
exactly.
of the chest where it shouldn't
Yeah.
do. And that can cause a lot of vomiting. And, you look at your breed, something like 35% of French bulldogs will have that.
I've seen it. I'm seeing it. I see it in brachycephalic dogs.
Yes.
Quite often. And then you're checking their hips. You're seeing anything that you're helping them with their nutrition. And nutritionist is another thing. But getting the food right in the start is extremely important. And you need to take care of your formulas. The potassium, the calcium ratios for growth. And then comes the conversation immediately. They're going to spay or neuter their dogs, and if this is it required. This is another debate, for me.
It is a debate. It is a debate. But, I think, but these are all conversations that should be started. It's, you get pregnant and hopefully you sort of get pregnant and you've got 6-7 months to plan and prepare for these things before this baby comes out of you
Yes.
and takes part of your world. You then have that baby and you have another 6 months before that baby's mobile and starts to need the house defended. But for a lot of people, they go out and choose a dog, take a dog home, and it's been that snap decision where they've decided to take that dog home, and they've suddenly gone to that stage where the house is not dog-proofed, and they've got no idea how many poisons they've got in their garden
Yes.
and in their home, and what could be poisonous, and nothing's dog-friendly. So the dog's running out into the street, disappearing, God forbid, getting hit by a car.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's just this disaster waiting to happen. And these are the dogs that get taken back to pet shop shelters because people say that these dogs are destructive. And it's not that they're destructive as such. It's the fact that these people were not prepared for this tornado to enter their homes.
Absolutely. And even one of the biggest failures we always speak about this is many dogs reach dog shelters because of soiling in the
Yes.
house. And it's one of these. This is one of these things that you can train your dog on pretty fast, but it takes time, and also depends on the age of the dog and how consistent you are with
Consistency.
It's all
Yes.
about consistency.
Yes.
This one, it's easy to fix, but it takes.
It's horrible
it
when you
needs
haven't
help.
fixed it.
Yes, definitely, and it has to be fixed. It creates this harmony in the household. So it's like you were saying. So we pick the right dog. We've had our conversation with the vets. We've had the conversation with our trainers, behaviorists on what to expect. We've already bought the equipment we need and the safe equipment as well.
Yep.
Right? A lot of people in the start, they go and they start buying, all of these toys and they want to spoil their dogs. And many of these toys are extremely dangerous to their dogs. They can chew on something, have an obstruction, rawhides, it can be a nightmare when it can be very simple.
It can also be nutritionally very unsound. I mean, the number of dogs we see as a vet that have been given treats, and those treats are so full of fat that those dogs are ending up with pancreas problems, with all sorts of other problems.
Yeah.
even diabetes and being grossly overweight because of the treats, and the owners think, oh, it's just a little treat, but that treat might as well be a half kilo of butter that they're feeding them.
Yeah, it's all about like a well-structured, balanced, and a consistent routine approach, if you like, right? Because
Yeah,
if your dogs like routine, and they have to have a good routine, and this is how we train most dogs: is we create a good routine that's with the use of proper communication channels.
but it's like being at work, isn't it? If you know what's expected of you, then it's easy to perform because you know what you're meant to achieve.
Yeah,
If dogs know what's expected of them, then they will perform well because they know what they're trying to achieve.
yeah.
If it's chaos in that environment, then the dogs don't know what they're doing, the owners don't know what they're asking of them, and disaster ensues.
And it's like you were saying, sort of prepping for the future, right? And that entails, many things. And one of the most important things, and we see this a lot, is, we're living as expats in Dubai, and say you have a dog and one day you decide to travel. All of a sudden, the dog needs to go through an aeroplane in a crate. It hasn't been crate trained before, and you're so worried about the journey and stress and anxiety and the impacts and the implications this can have on dogs is
Do you
big.
know? Do you know? Not just that. I mean, last week alone, I was sat in the office listening to my relocation department, and we had 4 different phone calls for people wanting to take their pets to Australia.
That's a
And
long journey.
it's a long journey, but it's a long journey of preparation beforehand.
Yeah,
And you've got 4 sets of people there, and they've packed their job in, they're moving to Australia next month, and it's, how do I take my dog? And when you turn around and say, well, actually, you've got 8 months before your dog can travel, they're devastated,
yeah,
and none of this has been thought through. To me as a vet, if I have people come into my room, I want to literally start that at the beginning and say, where are you going to travel to? How can we get your dog, your cat prepared, ready for you to go? And this is all part of the puppy conversations.
yeah.
Where are you going to end up? What are you going to do? Away from dogs, don't buy yourself a parrot that's going to live for 60, 70 years if your plan is to move to Australia in 5 years where that bird will not be allowed to travel.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Makes sense, yeah, definitely. And one of the other things that I like to see, is we're creating this sort of balance in terms of a dog's life, in terms of who is working with who today, like we started. So you have this good relationship between the dog owner, their vets, dog trainer, and also sometimes you need your dog trainer to advise on physiotherapists, for example, or
Absolutely.
you advise on physiotherapy. I really think we should bring someone to speak with us about this in the future. But like today, what we're doing in the facility with our dogs is we're looking at the mental stimulation, the enrichment, the training, but also we added strength and conditioning and core exercises to the dogs' daily routine. It's extremely important for their mobility, and especially puppies and your older dogs as well.
We're looking for ourselves at the moment, and especially when you've hit 40. Okay, some of us have hit 40 and beyond. But you look at some of these things, and all of a sudden your life is filled out with, how can I achieve better quality of life ongoing? What do
Yeah.
I have to do it? So, you go to the doctor and they fix your problems. You go to the nutritionist, they tell you what you can't eat. Not really what they can
Yeah.
eat, but, and, you then take that mission to go and join the gym
Yes.
and to do these things. And you go down, and just like for people, you have got 4 or 5 different schools of thought, ideas, experts in those fields that we actually need to discuss with to make the better us.
Yeah. And it can sound like, oh, do I need to speak to different entities? But
Yes.
some of us provide the service that sort of is like a one-stop shop where we can have that conversation with different parties that are involved with us. We can give you direct answers, and we can set you up for success from the start. So the life cycle of the dog is well covered. So let's assume we're dealing with a puppy. And we start with, medically making sure everything is fine. And if there is a medical flag, so for example, there's problems with the joints, then you get multiple parties involved. So the trainers are involved so they don't cause
Don't damage them
damage.
further, yes.
Yeah, and
And
then
the physiotherapist is involved to make them stronger, to stop the damage. The vet is involved to help in that process.
exactly. And then we go from here, and we look, and even the nutrition, so you control the nutrition of the
Very
dog,
much
the
so.
growth and weight in many cases.
I mean, the difference from when I qualified to now is realising how many problems we can preempt and prevent rather than having to treat. It's completely changed how we work as vets because there's so much more you can do to stop the problems from happening, and that's fantastic.
Yeah. Then let's say that's covered, and then comes the harmony.
It
in
is
the house.
harmony, but I think what's really nice as well is if you can get all this chaff out the way, if you can get all these problems dealt with,
Yeah.
you can have that time to enjoy your dog,
Yeah,
because that's why we get them.
And to achieve that, it's
Yeah.
like, let's say we've covered the medical aspects, we've covered the physical aspects of the dog, and we go into training. And the training, for me today, needs to, in a domestic household, needs to answer for the needs of that household and what is practical and what is not practical. Some dog training methods and commands and tricks and stuff like this don't have a space in the start. First we need to fix the foundations, right? And the foundations for me would be a very good recall, a very good response rate from the dog when you ask him to do simple things like sit, come, stay, go to your place, good leash manners. We get these things done properly in the start, and we open that proper channel of communication, and then we start to move into sort of, in the same time you're working with your dog in distractions in different environments, in getting stability out of the dog outside, no reactivity. And when we say the term socialization, there's so much written about that topic, and there's so many videos, and people speak about this. But sometimes there's so much bad information about how you socialize your dogs, right? And today, if you tell someone, you need to socialize your dog, and that's the first thing, many new dog owners here, or previous dog, or people who have experience with dogs, if you like, I've socialized my dog. My dog is going to parks. He's playing with big dogs, small dogs. But in between that, the dog can have bad interactions, and these bad interactions can have, impacts on the dog that create anxieties or aggression. It's not long ago, one of my clients, she has a big dog, his puppy. She's had him since he was 4 months old. At 6 months old, the dog has an altercation in one of the daycare centers with a bigger dog. He ends up with bitten, needed stitches multiple places in his body, and now the dog is sort of standoffish with other dogs. And it did have a negative impact on the dog, right? And that negative impact has sort of, the dog's 9 months old now, and we're having to do behavioral work rather than, we're doing the fun stuff, and the dog was really, getting into a space where he can be balanced. And now you're looking at a dog that's been through aggression, hormones, kicking in, he's becoming an adult, things are getting, out of place. So now the question is, the conversation we're having with the client is, Elias, do we neuter the dog? But that is also a big debate, right?
It is a debate that's coming out, and I think, when you look at that debate's probably a full topic for another session.
And case by case, I see it,
It is. There are some dogs that you think, yes, you really do need neutered quite young, because you've got small man syndrome and because you're developing these issues. Whereas you've got other dogs who you think, hey, actually, son, you need that Dutch courage. You actually need to keep those, because without them, you're going to be hiding in the shadows and we're never going to see the real you.
Yeah.
So, again, one size does not fit all. And I think that's really where you've got to get away from the books, and you've got to get that team of people you trust. And say, by getting a team of people who can help you with those aspects, you get the fun time.
Exactly. And again, you don't want to do mistakes in the start. Like the socialization part. Do it with an expert.
Yeah.
Do it with people who know what they're doing. Just going to a random dog park, is, for me, I wouldn't go to dog parks. No way.
No.
For the first thing that pops into my mind is infections, right? The second thing is everybody becomes a dog trainer, right? And everybody's giving advice. My dog is good and social, but there's let's say, there's big dogs with small dogs, running around, and a sudden impact can create damage to smaller dogs. And
But I think, but all of that is a case of when your dog goes into there, if your dog is stressed, then it's going to give off different vibes to the dog that's happy. I remember my first day actually, at boarding school. I'd started boarding school and I was the new kid in the middle of the year. I was very shy, anxious, no friends, and I'd started in the middle of the year. 2 girls came in, aiming to be nice, and one of them bopped me on the back of the head with a tennis racket. I didn't know who she was. My 11-year-old fight-flight response came in and picked up the tennis racket and hit her back, which was a pretty stupid thing to do. But it took me a long time as an 11-year-old to try and work back up to friendships after that, because people saw me to start off with as that aggressive kid. And it wasn't that I was aggressive. I just didn't expect it to. I reacted. And I shouldn't have done. But, that's what happens with dogs. That's what happens with
that situation at that age, no?
But that's what happens with these dogs in dog parks.
Exactly.
The reactions that happen are, because it's a completely uncontrolled environment, those reactions that can happen are not pre-planned and therefore can go wrong.
Yeah, and it becomes like, that you go from dog training to untraining, right? And, starting to work on the dog to make better decisions if you like in situation like this. And this can be,
it can break a dog.
Can break a dog, and also it can, change the fun out of that relationship that dog owners, what they expected from having, from their companions, right? And then, so these things are avoidable, really. And even sometimes, these things happen in premises that are supposed to be catering to professional socialization environments, if you like, of dogs.
Which is why you've got to pre-plan and you've got to know what you're dealing with, and you've got to, like we've said before, you've got to go in and you've got to ask the right questions. You've got to make sure that these socialization sessions are not a free-for-all, that they are controlled and that people are watching and know what these dogs are getting into, and that they start it so that there is a proper introduction at the beginning so that the dogs are in no way left on that free-for-all.
100%.
I mean, if you take kids to school or you start off in a workplace, nobody would expect you to drop from space into, I don't know, feeding frenzy in a concert and find out where you're meant to go.
Yeah. It's sort of like an induction, come and slowly, into a space that's quiet, and then we start to amplify the volume, and you have to start, quietly, and then you start to build on repertoires and, introducing new environments, new people, new spaces, but you have to have control.
The first time you ever go swimming should not be in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. You should start in a shallow bit.
I wouldn't go into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean today, even. So back to that, so we say we get good foundations in terms of training, and then we get good social skills, and then we start to look at what's the best approach to exercise our dogs, keep them mentally stimulated, create good routines for them that are beyond walking.
Again, like us at work, you don't reach the age of 25, think, I've got my degree, I've got everything, that's me done. What you do at that age 25 is think, right, where now? Exactly. And you do that next career course. You take that next challenge in that way. You have that new relationship. You do all of these new things. And that's where we need to continue with our dogs, because it's not about tick the box, you've puppy trained and you're done.
100%,
Training for all of us, however old we are, needs to continue, because that's what keeps us alive and keeps us going.
And you take that forward, like you said. You have a nice balance. You're keeping a nice exercise program for the dog. It's mentally enriched as well. In the same time, mental enrichment, when we use that term, is in a nutshell, it's just like sort of manipulating the senses of the dog, for example, to search for food in the house, to play different games that can stimulate him apart from,
It's like us, isn't it? It's that full mental well-being and balance.
Exactly. And emotional well-being in dogs also is real, right? And today is more real than ever. And when we, see these behavioral issues that we start seeing in dogs because of, our lifestyles or the way we live today is completely different from the past, right? And we spoke about this
Yeah,
before, I think, and we need to speak about it more
we do,
in the
because
future.
it's not, you're not living on a hillside on your own with your sheepdog
Yeah.
anymore. You know, we're different. We're introducing new threats, new challenges, and new expectations of our dogs to live with us.
Yeah, and we're sort of moving the working element from the dogs, right?
And some breeds aren't quite ready for that yet.
I don't think it is like the DNA is printed in the dog, right?
That's right.
So, it's like, I don't know how this will work, We need, what kind of specialist to speak to us about DNA imprinting, Maybe we can today clone and change.
But, I mean, it is where you are, isn't it? It's like when you look at percentage of caveman genes we've got in us and all of these things. Some breeds of dog are very, very well schooled genetically through thousands of generations into doing that particular task.
Yeah.
It's very hard to move them from that and say, right, okay, you're going to go from a working dog, let's say, chasing your sheep or guarding your people or doing whatever, and now you're going to watch daytime TV.
And become a companion.
Yes. Yeah, it takes more than one generation to allow that to happen and keep that dog sane and happy with what they're doing.
Yeah. And happiness is a sort of, different measure from person to person, from dog to dog, no?
Yeah.
And there's dogs that are happy to, stay calm, have a safe environment, safe space because they have some anxieties. And dogs that are really want to be out there and they want to work and they can create, for example, aggression because they're not stimulated enough.
We have that even, if you've got, let's say, your dog that has a spinal injury, you get some dogs that if they're never going to regain full function of those back legs, you get some dogs that are going to be so happy using a cart and going around with the cart and having help. And you get other dogs, and it's their own personal view of hell to have to depend on somebody for that purpose. Yeah, and as a vet, you've got to try and look with the owners of those individuals and see what that dog is going to be happy doing, because it's not one size fits all.
Yeah, 100%. It's very hard, no? It's very difficult also sometimes to have this conversation.
Yeah.
Right? And to identify. But also, here, for example, imagine you have a dog that's going through that stuff and the dog's not well trained.
Yeah.
And the dog, sort of, if a doorbell rings, his sudden instinct was always to react. And that reactivity can lead to, more complication. We always speak about the story where the dog sneezed and pulled
her back and we watched it happen. Yeah.
And management from an early age, and we deal with this. This is real. Like, I know we had to deal with one of our dogs when he was younger, and we had to do the patella surgery for him. And the dog comes out of the surgery 2 days later, like nothing happened with him, and he starts to zoom around in the room. He was a puppy, and I was trying to chase him, and he has zero recall at that stage. And until I pinned him, and not to move him. And then we had to go through crate training again, because we got the puppy. We found out he have a patella problem a week later, and all of a sudden, we need to manage that. And
Absolutely.
It's 2 months of not moving and then going into physiotherapy, and the dog has to do hydrotherapy. It was a nightmare.
And they don't understand.
And they don't understand that they shouldn't be jumping and moving. And all of these things, really, like good structure in the start saves money.
Absolutely.
And it creates this beautiful relationship, a harmony. And speaking with the experts from the start is everything. I get a call 8 o'clock at night a week ago. Hi, Elias. We just got a toy poodle, and we just picked her up, and we're going home. I say, okay, can you give us any tips for tonight? I say, look, I'm going to have you speak with one of our behaviorists. He'll walk you through the works, what you need to do. From tomorrow morning, we'll be on it. I said, no, for tonight, you don't have any tips. It's our first dog. I was like,
Why?
okay, do you have a crate? No, we made a space for him in the house to put him, and so I say, okay, whatever you're going to do, just make sure there's no cables in the space that the dog can bite or chew on. There's no plants. There's nothing he can eat that can harm him. right? And then from there, if the dog yelps and cries all night, don't attend to him. Just make sure the dog has water, and tomorrow morning we start taking care of things. And but this is happening all the time, right? So you don't have the right tools. You're not prepared at all. It's like me knowing that I'm getting, I need an emergency surgery from the morning, but I go and do it in the night when the doctors are going home.
It's amazing how much that happens.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, digressing a bit, but it's like the other way around. With health problems, we have people who phone up at 9 o'clock at night saying, "Oh, I've watched my cat vomit 30 times today."
Is he still alive?
And they say, "I'm thinking I'm going to go to bed soon, so maybe it's 10 o'clock at night, but I'm quite worried about going to bed." And you think, well, this has been happening for the last 12 hours. Why didn't you come in business hours? Why didn't you? Yes, we can see you now, but it's not. You've not done right by your pet in waiting this long to bring them in, because they're in a much worse state than if you'd brought them 6 hours ago.
Yeah, and it's funny enough you say that. Like with me, when I'm speaking with new dog owners, the first few, like let's say few hours, really, we have like long hour conversations, and I'm sort of just speaking about medical stuff that can go wrong.
Yeah.
For an hour and a half. And in the end, I have to apologize to the client and say, "Look, I'm sorry, I'm making this sound like
very negative,
but really, these are things that I want you to be prepared for, because some of that stuff you will see, and prevention is extremely important. So
much better than
move
cure.
your poisonous plants from inside the house. Move the cables. Don't overwalk your puppy. If you start to see hyperventilation, what you're gonna do? And don't. And we go through the basics. Just don't give him water. Take him to the vets. Don't overwork them. What do you do in humidity? We just give them the works in the start to help them.
It's quite amazing how many people get a new dog and they get this dog, and because it's their first dog, I suppose. Husband who got a new bike this weekend, and he did the same. And they get on the bike and they go for an hour ride, and you think, but it's middle of the day now, it's 40 degrees, what are you doing? And people get this new dog, this new puppy, and think, right, I'm going for a walk now, and they fail to understand that this puppy is stressed. It's just come out into a completely different environment, and maybe that new dog isn't quite as excited about going off and hiking in the waddies as the owner is on that 100%. First day they're there.
And vaccines are compromised.
Exactly.
And this is where we start also, vaccines, vaccine checks. So, right, I think we've covered most of the
I think so.
Topics. Definitely there's more detail that needs to go into, more topics like neutering, castration,
healthcare, more training.
Yeah, more training, speaking more about behavior issues, anxieties, what to look out for, how to deal with them. Definitely in the start, it's like we said, good selection.
Get your team around you, then get your dog and keep the team.
100%.
And by having that team, you get the enjoyment from your dog.
Support system.
Yep.
Support system is extremely important.
Yep.
100%, yeah. Right. Thank you for today. It's always good to see you, to chat with you.
It's been very good.
See everyone in our next episode. Thanks for tuning in.